Before we get into this, I just wanted to give like a gentle but important heads up. Like what I'm going to share is vulnerable. It is raw. And for some, like it might be confronting and hard to hear. Like I'm going to speak honestly about my mental health struggles as a mother, my intrusive thoughts, trauma, rage, moments that even I have trouble saying out loud. I just want to ask your listeners, like, if their first reaction is judgment, if they feel they're like themselves thinking I'm a monster or I don't deserve to be a mother, like I'm just asking them to take a pause, take a breath, because trust me, there's nothing that they can think of that I haven't already thought of myself. And more importantly, that kind of judgment is exactly why people wipe in silence. It's why people don't seek help. It's why families fall through the cracks, because we feel like we can't say it. So I'm just asking, like, please listen with like an open mind, an open heart. Try to sit with the uncomfortable truths, not because it's easy, but because it is real. And it is the reality that some very good and very loving parents have to live through. And those parents need to know that they're not alone. So
it's powerful, Lauren. Thank you. Really powerful.
This episode might be the most important one I've done yet. My guest is Lauren Gibbs, a gifted photographer, mum, and someone who speaks with raw honesty about a side of parenting we don't hear about enough. She opens up about postpartum depression, intrusive thoughts, trauma, rage, and the silent battles so many parents fight behind closed doors. Before we jump in, here are some things worth knowing. Over 80% of new parents experience intrusive thoughts. Around 50% of mothers and 20% of fathers report thoughts of harming their baby, not because they want to, but because of anxiety, trauma, or OCD. It's their brain's way of trying to protect them and their little ones. And yet only a small fraction ever speak up because of fear, shame, judgment. This episode is confronting at times, but it's real, and it might just help someone feel seen for the first time. Let's get into it.
So, Lauren, welcome to Drop Balls and Big Calls, and thanks for joining me today.
thanks for having me.
So you're living in North Canterbury in Rangiora and originally from the United States, I understand.
Yeah. Yep. That's correct.
Amazing. Well, one of my favourite parts of the world, North Canterbury. I'm not biased or anything, but I am from there. And how's life in North Canterbury these days?
It's good. Yeah, it's good. It's good. We're having a bit of cold weather right now. We actually had a few nice days, which was a needed break. We got to get the kids outside, which is amazing because kids being cooped up inside they just go crazy. So getting them outside, letting them be in the wild. Yeah, it was good. But yeah, things are going really well here.
How long have you been living there now?
So Michael and I moved to New Zealand October 2021.
Amazing.
Yeah, and we've
So
kind
sort
of
of the
been,
back end of the COVID period.
I don't know if he had told you anything about like our journey, like meeting and whatnot, because we actually met through music. We met through singing, which was really kind of embarrassing to kind of admit initially, because like people are thinking, oh, you met through singing, like that, like that's really cool. And then it's like, how? Like karaoke app.
So good.
So yeah, I was in the US and he was here, and here as in New Zealand. And we started singing together, and then all of these things unfolded. But he ended up moving actually over to the US it was a year after we got married. So we had to spend that whole first year of marriage apart, which was not fun. But he had his interview finally at the consulate on March 19th, 2020. And that, like, the next day the consulate shut down due to COVID. So he got approved, but we thought it was going to take 14 days to get his visa because that's normal. They overnighted it to him. He got his visa the next day, actually on his birthday. But they only had flights leaving the country the next couple of days, like the first couple of days of that week. So he had to pack up his life and move move countries over a weekend during COVID.
Wow.
Like, yeah, his the flight there when the pilot landed and he was like came on and was talking to the passengers, he started crying. Yeah, because it was his last flight. Like he didn't know what the future was going to hold. It was scary. So yeah, so we went from being on separate continents to lockdown.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that sort of the same for you when you moved to New Zealand? Like you sort of arrived and it's that same feeling? Was that a similar feeling for you?
No, I don't. I mean, as we get into everything that was going on, I thought that I was just feeling excited. Like I thought it was just all excitement. Like I just kind of was ready to be over here. But I did have a lot of worries and stress and that kind of stuff moving here. But I didn't realize it, I guess. It kind of hard to explain. But yeah, things drastically changed though once we moved here and everything just started to unravel.
Sure, we'll come to that. We'll go in a sort of a good structure there. But you're a photographer as well, I understand.
Yeah. So over in the US, I worked in pharmacy for 13 years, and my last job was the head of the department of the specialty department. They didn't have a specialty department, and they put me in that role to kind of build it up. And I had no idea how to code or do anything like that, but I kind of taught myself some things so that I could make a program for them. Not full coding, but in what was it? I feel like it was Microsoft SharePoint, maybe.
Yeah, right.
But it wasn't doing everything I needed it to do, so I was actually going in and doing the JavaScript and stuff like that. So yeah, and then moving here, no idea what I was going to do. Pharmacy, since I didn't have an actual pharmacist degree, it didn't translate over here, and I was having trouble understanding all of it. Plus, I was heavily pregnant, so nobody's going to hire me. And then after having Logan, 3 months postpartum, I was just like, I need something to help occupy part of my brain. And I chose photography. I had taken a photography course in college, an actual film course, so learning how to develop it and all that stuff. But at that point in my life, I didn't take critique very well. So I got one bad critique. Wasn't even that bad, but he said one thing, and I was like, I'm done. I'm not going back to class. So I didn't even finish the course. But I started photography here and did not know how that was going to go, but I entered the IRIS Awards last year. So the IRIS Awards are the most prestigious photography awards for New Zealand. It's New Zealand Institute of Professional Photography runs these awards, and people from Australia enter New Zealand. Actually, we've had people from all over the world enter, but I thought I wasn't going to do very well. It was kind of my friend who talked me into doing it. And I actually was a finalist for a New Zealand's Family Photographer of the Year. They called my name.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. They called my name and I was just my jaw just dropped and I was like, what is going on? I didn't expect to hear my name. And then this year for the Asia Pacific Photography Awards, I won the maternity category. So I got first place and won the whole category. I got a trophy. It's actually right there.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So it's going well. I'm definitely passionate about it.
That's amazing. Sounds like it's really changed things for you and an awesome creative outlet as well.
Yeah, it's definitely been a creative outlet, and it's also a way that I can help people. I do it. The reason I'm passionate about it is because I like to show people how beautiful their life actually is and how beautiful they actually are. Because a lot of people don't want to do the family portraits. They don't want to do maternity portraits because they feel they don't like the way they look. They don't think that they're good in pictures. They think they're awkward. But I like to run my sessions more of just quality time with the family. I have them play games like tag, red light, green light. I have them I work it in a way where I'm picking the lighting, I'm picking the angles, I'm telling them kind of where to stand, but then giving them a prompt to interact with each other as a family and catching those moments. And people they're just amazed usually by what they see. They're like, oh my gosh, especially when it's families and there's kids and they're like, oh, my kid was acting horrible. They're being a monster. You're not going to get anything. And then I'll send them their proof gallery and they're like, oh my God, how did you capture these moments? So it's really nice.
How did you come up with that structure or that idea to do those pre-activities, to get those shots?
There's a lot. I can't take credit for that. It's not an original idea. It was just kind of because I had a hard time finding actual schooling here, or we couldn't afford for me to go to university. A lot of my learning is done by research online. So a lot of what happens when you're starting out as a photographer is you need to find your place. You need to find what you like. So you kind of just do everything and you take any advice that kind of comes your way. And I've tried a bunch of different styles, and that style was the one that just kind of spoke to me the most. I finally have gotten into that groove where, that's what works for me and that's what I like to do.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Congratulations on your awards. That's really cool
Thank you.
recognition. Amazing stuff. So, Lauren, take me back. Who was Lauren Gibbs growing up? What was your earliest memories, and where are you from originally?
So I was born in the U.S. I was born in Ohio. I think I was like, I don't know, 11 maybe when we moved. I can't remember the age. But we moved to Minnesota, which is basically dead center of the U.S. but bordering Canada, so all the way up north. Me, gosh. I was an awkward kid. Like I was just, I was awkward. I was oblivious. My parents used to always make fun of me because I was so oblivious. I would miss things that were like in front of my face. But I was adventurous. I'd love to go outside, love to climb, love to, was just kind of a happy kid for a good while.
The move to Minnesota, what drove to Minnesota from Ohio? Maybe if you like paint the picture of your family.
So at that time my parents were divorced, but my mom had remarried to this wonderful guy. It's my stepdad, Chris, and he's been with us since then. But his job was he had to travel a lot for his job. So they finally they had positions available where he could actually work in an office and travel a lot less. And it was either Minnesota or Kansas in Tornado Alley. My mom was like, "Oh, fuck that!" Like,
and fair enough.
So they chose Minnesota. So we drove the whole way from Ohio to Minnesota for that move. And yeah, honestly, I think it was one of the best things that kind of happened to us. So it was me, my sister Brittany, my full sister Brittany, and my mom and my stepdad, and our zoo of animals. We had 4 cats at the time, 3 dogs, 7 birds. My parents. My mom is. We love animals, animal lovers, but she's kind of one of the people that is like she'll take anything in because she has such a big heart.
Yeah.
So we ended up with a lot of pets.
Yeah, sure.
I love them, but it's just the inevitable heartbreak of having a pet.
Yeah, they never live long enough, do they?
No.
And how was the transition for you? Obviously, moving to a new area. You said you're 11, yeah?
I think around 11.
Yeah. So you're starting a new school. You've moved away from your friends. I suppose that you've developed in your early childhood. What was that move like for you? How was the adjustment there?
I honestly don't remember really having friends. Like, I mean, I did. Like, I could go to school and like I get along with people. Like, people liked me, but I don't recall like having actual like friend relationships. And then so moving to Minnesota was the same. Like, I can kind of belong anywhere, I guess, but at the same time not. Like, I was bullied quite a bit when we moved. So it was weird. It was this weird balance of fitting in, but at the same time not fitting in. And I just think I just didn't understand it.
What was the bullying about? Like, do you recall what it was targeted at?
I've always had trouble with my weight, and it was probably just because, well, of things I know now as an adult, but back then I didn't know. I just didn't understand social cues. I didn't, you know what I mean? I was awkward. So, and I think it made me a bit of an easy target for bullying. So I remember it was our second year there, because the first year I was in 6th grade, but that was still elementary school in that state. And so we were moving up to the new middle school and we were taking a tour. And one of the girls that bullies me, we got to the nurse's office and she's like, "Oh, Lauren, you'll be spending a lot of time there." Like, because that's where I would go when I was getting bullied. I didn't want to be in class. So I'd say I was sick and go to the nurse's office. So she was even making fun of me for that. Yeah.
Kids are cruel, man. I look like fairly relatively similar experience in my schooling years, to be fair.
Sorry to hear that. It's rough.
Yeah, it is. It is. Kids are bloody cruel. There's no filter. They don't know any better, right?
No, and your world is so small as a kid. Like, you really think that honestly what's right around you that's the world. You don't understand how big the world is and how many other people are out there. And so it means a lot about what others think of you during that time when you're growing. I'm really hoping that I can teach my boys more self-worth than I had and like more confidence, and try to prepare them as well as I can for bullying. I know I can't stop it, but yeah, it just breaks my heart thinking about I go through it.
It's got to be fucking terrifying. Like, as a parent, you know, I think about, I'm assuming we're pretty similar age. So I was thinking when we were younger, like, we didn't have access to all the social media that kids do now. You could leave the school and it essentially ended at the gate, right?
Yeah.
And I think kids these days don't get that opportunity.
No,
unless they're well protected from it.
Yeah. No, I think we were lucky in that aspect. Yeah, because I remember when my school got its first computer. You know
Me
what
too.
I mean? Like, yeah. It's amazing how much progress we've made with technology, but it has its downfalls too, and I think that's one of them. I think that, I'm so worried about how to protect my children from that. But I worry about everything. I worry about absolutely everything. And I mean, that started from, I've always been that way, but I didn't really realize it. And then I wasn't supposed to have kids. Like, growing up, that's all I wanted to be. I was born to be a mother. Like, I felt it with like every fiber of my being. I was meant to be a mother. I was told that I was going to have trouble conceiving, and there's a possibility that I wouldn't be able to have kids. So,
and that was at a very young age, right?
Yeah, it was like a teen. Yeah. So like my whole life I grew up and thinking I can't have kids. And so there were periods of time when I actually grieved that child I couldn't have, which might sound really stupid, but like it really felt it. Like, I was so incredibly sad and distressed that this was not going to be my future. And then fast forward, let's see, how old was I? Late 20s. And I got married, and not going to go too deep into that, but was an abusive marriage. It just took me a long time to admit that it was abusive, not because like I was ashamed. I mean, shame did kind of follow, but it was because I didn't understand it was abusive, because there weren't bruises. It wasn't physical. So you kind of look at, well, I'm not getting hit. Like, he's not hurting me in that way, so he's not being abusive. But it was psychological. It was emotional. It was spiritual. It was like, yeah. So he had me believing at the end that if I left him, that his gods were going to punish me, and that I would die of ovarian cancer and never have kids, which sounds crazy, right? Like, how can somebody convince you of this? But his control was that strong, because I had been with him for years, and it doesn't start out with these crazy things. It starts out really small. And so, that was towards the end of the marriage. I was going to bed every night, basically contemplating whether I could survive like another day or if I should just end it, because leaving wasn't an option, because I knew I could not live without having kids. So,
when you'd already been told this, right?
Yeah, I'd already been told it, but now I'm being told that I will, like, for a fact, that it's some external force that's greater than me that I can't see, that is going to actually punish me, and not only not give me children, but like kill me, So that's when Michael comes in. Yeah, he's a superstar now. This is the second episode he's been mentioned on. No, I met him. Music has been one of my escapes. Music is just so powerful, right? So I would kind of use that karaoke app as an escape. And
so, just for context, the karaoke app is like where you can sort of do duets on film, yeah?
Yeah, so you can do audio or video. You can do solos. You can do duets where you can start the duet and then it's open for anybody on the app to finish it, or you can join somebody who's already done it, or you can even open group songs. So it's numerous people can join. And I was just searching songs that I like. And I believe the song was, I think it was Awake and Alive by Skillet.
Sounds apt.
Huh?
That sounds apt.
Yeah. and Michael's face just kind of popped up, and I was like, okay. And then I listened to it and I was like, damn, he can actually sing. Like, I loved his voice. It was like butter. Like, it was. And then he had another song open with one of my favorite bands, Within Temptation. what have you done? And in the description, it was like, oh, I've done blind harmonies. And I was like, what? Wait a minute. This dude can harmonize too. So I joined him on video, and the next day he listened to him, and he was just, I was thinking, because there's a lot of people on there where their egos are so big, and you join somebody thinking they're going to like this, and then they don't even like listen to it. They don't even comment. They're just, and I thought that was going to be him. I thought he was going to be an asshole. He kind of looked like one. So I was like, he's good looking. He can sing. Like, this dude's ego is probably through the roof. He's not even going to listen to my joins. But he did, and he was stoked. Like, he was so incredibly excited. He's like, oh my God. And he joined one of mine. So yeah, we just began singing together, and then naturally chatting, because like when you can comment on the song. So that began the kind of back and forth. And then we went to chatting on another app, because the chat system on that karaoke app was shit. And there was an app that like everybody used. It was like Line, I'm pretty sure it was. So it's like WhatsApp, but yeah. Anyway, not important to the story. So he came, and I was really in a dark place, and my thoughts at night went from like, can I survive this, or should I end it all, to I would much rather spend even just a few months happy and feeling what joy felt like with Michael than being held in emotional captivity, I guess. So he was kind of
He gave you some confidence again.
He gave me hope. When I like that, I didn't even know that was possible. And like, I can't even articulate how that felt. It was just like this, he was just like this warm light that was kind of leading my way out of this darkness. And it sounds so cheesy, but it's true. And yeah, he's just an amazing soul. Absolutely amazing. And he's continued to be throughout everything. Like, we had like a really good few years, and then we'll get into it, but after kids, things just, he's carried this whole family. Yeah. So right. So I'm not supposed to have kids, because the doctors have told me that. My ex had convinced me that I was going to die of ovarian cancer because I left him, and I was never going to have kids. And after Michael moved to the US during COVID, we waited until it was kind of safe to start family planning, because right, like, who's going to be like, yeah, now is a great time to have kids during this pandemic, and we have no idea what the fuck is going on and if anybody's going to survive. So we waited. It was like a year and a half, and we were talking about going to like fertility doctors. We started going to a fertility doctor. I needed to lose weight first before we could start our journey. So he helped me through that. He kind of did everything that I did, so that I didn't feel pressure to like see him doing something different and then fall off the wagon, which was completely different from the other relationship, like from the marriage. But yeah, so I lost the weight. I got the green light to start treatment. My next call was supposed to be when my cycle started, so we could start our fertility journey. And my next call was, I'm pregnant. Like, and oh my God, that test was a trip, man. Like, I can't tell you the number of pregnancy tests that I've taken in my life. Like, it's way too many to count. And I'm used to like seeing that stark white, right? Like, the control line comes up, and then it's just white. It's just nothing ever appears. And each time that happened, like, felt like a part of me broke, even in the past relationships and in the abusive relationship, I still wanted that child. So I was still like going through getting all these negative tests. And so the one, right? I took the test, and I had to take a double take. I was just like, what? Like, wait a minute. Like, it wasn't a very clear, like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. It wasn't like that line. It was just, it wasn't stark white. Like, there was a tiny little anomaly, and I was like, wait, hold on. Am I pregnant? Like, looking at it under as many different light sources as I can find, taking pictures of it and trying to like adjust the contrast, adjust the saturation, and like all of these things just to see if this was actually what I was seeing. And I ended up sending a picture to my sister, and she was like, that's a line and there's color. She's like, you're pregnant. I was just like, oh my God. And you would think this would have been like a really happy time, but honestly, it wasn't. Like, I immediately got scared. I was immediately terrified because I'm not supposed to have this kid, right? Like, doctors told me I probably wasn't going to, but then my ex drilled it into me that I wasn't supposed to have this. I'm actually supposed to die. So I was so scared that something was going to come and I was going to lose the baby, or I was going to do something wrong and lose the baby. It was so hard. I was worried if I got up on the wrong side of the bed, I would lose the baby. If I didn't pray, I'd lose the baby. And I'm not a religious person. Like, spent a long time questioning God and why me because of all of the shit that I've been through. Yeah, it was like I felt that I needed to do these things to not lose the pregnancy. And it kind of continued throughout the whole pregnancy. It just started to shift, but like I couldn't bond with the baby that was growing inside me because if I did, I'd lose him. Couldn't buy anything for him. You know, supposed to be excited that you're having a baby and you can go out and buy all these cute baby clothes and all this stuff. I was so scared that if I bought something that was going to set a chain reaction off of events and I would lose him. And it feels really stupid. The guilt that I feel because there's women out there that's their reality. They've lost babies, right? Whether it's a miscarriage or they've actually lost children. And here I am feeling this way when it hasn't even happened. Like, I'm just scared it's going to. And that was one of the, because I got pregnant, that's why we were looking at where are we going to live? We're going to live in New Zealand. We're going to live in the US. And there were multiple reasons why we chose New Zealand. But some of the key ones were I felt a lot safer not being on the same continent as my ex, but also the way that New Zealand and the US were handling COVID were very, very different. And I'm not saying, I know for people that were actually here in New Zealand and lived through how it was handled, there's people that disagree with how it was handled or not, but you got to understand that being in the US, seeing a country that had eradicated it, that looks like amazing. Like, you want to be there, especially me, with thinking that the most random things are going to make me lose my child. Obviously, COVID was a real danger. So we chose to come to New Zealand and we went through the whole process. We got approved, ended up getting a spot in quarantine, which that was a nightmare for me. I couldn't choose my food. They had and you could kind of pick from two different options, but that was really all the control I had. I was supposed to be able to say, no aioli because aioli had raw egg and you're not supposed to eat raw egg when pregnant. And, I'd have undercooked meat show up and stuff like that, which I was obviously very, very kind of over the top with it. I was terrified. So I don't blame the hotel that we were in, but it was hard.
How far through your pregnancy were you at this point?
7 months.
So yeah, okay. So you're pretty late stages.
Yeah. And obviously scared because we just traveled on a huge plane with a bunch of people from the US for 14 hours on that long flight, then went through the airport at Auckland. And it was so we were controlled the whole way through it. I don't even remember how we got our luggage, if we had to pick up our luggage, but then they loaded us all in these buses. And we could only be with the people that we were on the plane with. They loaded us all in these buses and then drove us from Auckland to Rotorua was was our group. And then we had to wait on this bus for them. I think it was do you have New Zealand, does New Zealand have National Guard, or what is the military here?
I think it's just the Army or the New Zealand Defence Force.
Yeah. So, maybe it was a Defence Force. Yeah. But they were there, checking in people, and you just had to kind of wait. So it was the whole thing was just kind of scary. But so we get here and Michael gets a job working at the place that he worked at before he left, which was really nice. That was amazing that they were willing to take him back. I mean, he's an amazing person, great employee. So there was no question, but I'm just happy they did. But so we come to I'm at 36 weeks plus 6 days. And I'd been having pain in like my lower abdomen for about a week and a half. And I contacted my midwife and she was like, oh, it's round ligament pain. You're fine. I'm like, okay. But then that day, I couldn't get out of bed. Like it hurt to lay in bed. It hurt to get out of bed. I couldn't stand up straight without that hurting. And it wasn't severe, but it was worrisome. So I got a hold of the backup midwife because my midwife was always gone. She was always on the West Coast or always doing something else. I saw her once. So I got a hold of my backup midwife and she's like, I don't think it's appendicitis, but just to be safe, like, let's get you seen. And I was so surprisingly not worried about it. With everything I was worried about, I was surprisingly not that worried because I told Michael, oh, just finish your work day and then come get me. It wasn't like, take me to the hospital now. So he finished work. He came home. He got me, took me to 24-hour surgery. And they're like, you would be a lot more sick if you had appendicitis. We don't think it's appendicitis. Like, you look pretty good. And they're like, well, we want to make sure it's not labor. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just along for the ride. Let me go to the hospital. Because that's where they had to send me when they needed to make sure it wasn't labor. And didn't get up to a room until probably 10, 11 o'clock at night. And then the doctor didn't come in until 3 a.m. because there's such short staff at night. And he did his evaluation. He's like, nah, I don't think you have appendicitis. But we'll keep you. And then in the morning, we'll do an ultrasound and see what's going on. So in the morning, getting the ultrasound tech, she's like, where does it hurt? I'm like, right here. And so she puts the probe there and there's something there. And I'm like, what is that? And she goes, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? So she's like, I think that's your appendix. I need to go convince my boss that that's your appendix. I was like, what do you mean you have to convince? Like, isn't that your job? Like, what do you? So she comes back. She's like, yeah, that's your appendix. I'm like, okay, cool. And luckily at this point, because my brain is so good at this, I had already prepared for this scenario. My brain prepares for anything that could possibly happen. So right when my midwife had said, I don't think it's appendicitis, my brain was going through all the scenarios, and that was obviously one of them. If it's appendicitis, then rationally, I'm going to need a C-section. They're going to have to take my baby out and take my appendix. So when all this came about, I already knew. I was like, okay, so I'm going to have a C-section. They take me back to my room. Doctors come in. They're like, yeah, you have appendicitis, but we don't know what we're going to do. And so I just had to kind of wait for them to come to the same conclusion that I had already come to the night before. And they did. They came in, they're like, you need an emergency C-section. I asked them if I could be awake for the whole thing because like my birth plan had already gone out the window completely, right? They ask you all these things like, what music do you want? What lighting do you want? Well, all of that fucking went out the window. And I was worried that them taking him out, I was going to have trouble bonding. But if I was completely put under and I just woke up and all of a sudden my baby's not inside me anymore and he's his own person, I think that I wouldn't have handled it. So the surgeon that was doing the appendectomy was like, oh yeah, it's fine. So I had the surgery. I had completely awake, had my C-section, and then they pretty much tag teamed. And they're like, the other surgeon went right in and took my appendix out. And I heard Logan cry, just a little sound, and then there was nothing. So I'm pretty, I wouldn't say incapacitated. I'm alert, but I'm, going through another surgery with the getting my appendix out, and I have no idea what's going on with my baby. I can't hear him. And he needed resuscitation for 25 minutes, which it was he's fine, but it was kind of scary not knowing what the heck is going on. And then we get to recovery. That's all good. Surgeon had said because he was 37 weeks exactly, which is technically full term. So he was full term on a technicality, but because he was on that line and because he needed the 25 minutes of resuscitation, the surgeon was like, I want him to have 3 blood glucose checks. And I don't remember this. I mean, I just went through 2 surgeries. I'm hopped up on oxycodone now because the surgery is done. My hormones are plummeting because the baby's out of me. My placenta's out. My body's adjusting. So my memory's crap. So we get up to they do the first one. It's fine. The hospital midwife brings us up to our room and she's like, my shift is done. But just to remind you, he has another blood glucose check at 11. or whatever time it was. Maybe it was 1 a.m. I don't remember. And we're like, okay, sweet. And then that time comes and goes. And we're like, they didn't come in. So we called the midwife or the nurse midwife, whoever comes in. She's like, oh, no, we only do one. His first one was normal, so we don't do anymore. And we just went, okay. Like, they're the professionals. They know what they're doing. And left it. But I was having trouble. He was so sleepy. And I brought that up. And they're like, oh, he's just a newborn. That's what they do. I'm like, okay. But I was having trouble breastfeeding. Like, he wouldn't eat. And nobody helped me. Nobody showed me how to breastfeed. They weren't offering me assistance. And the next day, that midwife brought in like a breast pump, but she didn't show me how to use it. And so I didn't know what I was doing. And again, I'm hopped up on so many pain meds and like and I didn't sleep that night. So I'm not in a good state of mind. And then she says, your baby's not getting enough food. He needs formula, which doesn't sound like a big deal. But nothing else in my birth went the way that it was supposed to. And that was one thing I was passionate about, was like, I needed my baby breastfed. Like, I didn't want to do formula. And I knew that if a drop of formula touched his lips, he would no longer be eligible for donor milk. So it was just like this panic that kind of came over me. And I was like, this isn't right. This isn't right. This isn't right. But I asked, like, can you have donor milk? She's like, no, you're not eligible. I was like, okay. And finally just gave in. She's like, it's just one little syringe. I'm like, okay, well, he needs to eat. So fine. So she brought in the syringe. I don't remember who gave it to him, whether it was me, Michael, or her, but I just kind of withdrew into myself. I was just quiet. I may have looked sad, but I was just quiet. I was trying to cope and take it all in. And she goes, well, now you made me feel like I've done something wrong. And I'm like,
this is a nurse.
This was, the nurse or the midwife. Yeah. And I was like, no,
Fuck me.
Yeah. I was like, no, I just like this, and then her shift, she left because her shift was ending. And the next midwife came in and she was like writing up his feeding schedule on the board. And we're like, well, no, we don't want to give him formula. I really want to try to breastfeed. And she goes, all right, fine. Then you have 30 minutes to fill up these 3 syringes or else he's getting formula.
Fuck, man.
And yeah. And Michael is not confrontational. He doesn't really get angry like that. And he like called for the head midwife and she came in and he goes, that midwife is not to enter our room again. Like he put a stop to it. He's like, no, she's not welcome in here. So they had to get another midwife. And you knew the minute she came in that her coworkers had talked about us, right? Like there's the vibe she's giving off. That's like, she's already annoyed with us. Like we're trouble. And she wouldn't talk to us. She wouldn't really help. And one time I was like, oh, I'm so happy Logan just fed for 45 minutes, like feeling really good about this. And she doesn't say anything. She just starts to walk out and she goes, well, let me know if you need help latching. I'm just like, oh my God. And then his next feed comes up and I can't wake him. Like he's too tired. I cannot wake him. So I page her, right? She said, if you need help, page. So I did. She comes in. She's like, there's nothing I can do about a sleeping baby. Like, what is going on? And she leaves. And next thing I get a text from my backup midwife saying, I've just heard from the hospital and they're worried your baby's going to end up in NICU. And I was like, nothing was said to us. Absolutely nothing was said to us at all. This was news to us. And now we're scared because we're like, what's going on? Why is he going to end up in NICU? Is he sick? And so we page for the midwife and she brings in the head midwife with her. Like it's this intervention. And like they said, like, we want to check his blood glucose. And we're like, good, fine. Like we thought there were supposed to be more checks anyway, that you guys were like, no, he's fine. And so they checked it and she's like, oh, it's exactly what I thought. It's dangerously low. He needs emergency glucose. And like Michael and I we both started crying and both feeling like we made a mistake. We're not meant to be parents. We can't do this, clearly. Like we almost killed our son day one. And
why did you default to it being your fault straight away? Because
that's how they made us feel. They were angry with us. I didn't refuse the formula. After he had that syringe, they were bringing in more formula that he was doing top ups. So it's not like we were not feeding him, but they just and for me, that's how I've been kind of my whole life with all the trauma I've been through. Like my first thing is it's my fault. Right? Nobody else can really do anything wrong. It's always me. I'm always the screw up. But for Michael to feel that too, for him to feel like he was a failure, it had to be more than just my own mental health. And I mean, we both regret this now, but we were profusely thanking this midwife, right? Like, thank you so much for catching that. And she didn't even acknowledge us as we were thanking her. She was just smugly feeding Logan his glucose, his emergency glucose. And that set the tone for, I think, pretty much the next few years. Like that, even that night, in the middle of the night, Logan started crying in his bassinet in the hospital, and I was too terrified to touch him because I was like, I couldn't pick him up because I was like, clearly he's not safe with me, you know? So I had to page the midwife to come pick him up because he was crying. Yeah, so we had a really shit time in the hospital. I will say to their credit that the next day, we asked for the head midwife, which was a different one. I made sure if it was going to be the same one, I was like, I don't want to deal with her. But it was a different one. And we told them what happened, and they apologized profusely and was like, that's not what's supposed to happen here. And they handpicked a midwife for us. And she was so gentle, felt more like we were being cared for. And then I ended up needing to go back into surgery because I had a massive hematoma and an infection. I had cellulitis in the incision, this is only like 2-3 days after the C-section. So they had to take me and actually put me under and clean me out. And then I had to be on antibiotics. So we were in hospital for like 5 days. That first day after that night when I couldn't pick up my son, when the surgeon came in, it would have been the surgeon coming to check on me. I said, I need help. Her first question was, do you have any thoughts of hurting your child? And I was like offended that I was even being asked this, right? Like, how? He's a day old. Like, how could anybody ask me if I'm going to hurt my child? Like, I was like taken aback. And of course I was like, no. And I didn't. The only thoughts I had were that he was going to get hurt, and maybe it would be like negligence on my part, or maybe it was going to be a medical thing. Like, I didn't know, but it wasn't that. So then we get home and these fears just like amplify. Like, I'm absolutely terrified of SIDS. I was terrified he was going to die in his sleep. And we followed every safe sleep recommendation to a T. Like, we sterilized the bottles every time. And if I wasn't sure if they had been done, we'd do them again. And I wouldn't let Logan be sleeping and both of us sleeping. So one adult had to be awake with Logan at all times. Poor Michael. But I was just too scared. And I was scared that whatever force that my ex had me afraid of was lingering and just waiting for me to fall asleep so he could come take my baby. It was just all these things. And like, I knew I wasn't. I'm sorry.
No. Sorry to break your train of thought there. I just wanted to say, like, even without all that stuff happening in the hospital before you left, and I don't know how many days you were even in there. It didn't sound like a long period of time, but a lot had happened in that time. But even my own experience leaving the hospital for the first time with your baby, and that probably first few weeks afterwards, it's fucking terrifying on its own.
Yeah.
Right? You've been given, if you're lucky, really limited like instruction on how you should go about things, how to look after the thing, basically.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I had the same thoughts about the overnight stuff, like any little noise, like petrified. Like it is terrifying. You just don't know what you're getting, what you've got yourself into. You don't know what the sounds mean. You don't know what's going right, what's going wrong. You're just going by feel, right? But you've had all this previous context before even leaving hospital. You know, people that did not give you the love and care that you really needed. So yeah, I can't imagine how you must have felt at that point.
I mean, unfortunately, with Christchurch Women's, it's not a rare story. Like, I actually just did a newborn photo shoot, and the mother had disclosed to me before the shoot that she was struggling. And during the session, I was talking to her, and I mean, her experience mirrored mine so much, like down to the emergency C-section, and then the midwives just being jaded, just rude, and just making you feel like And I think it was the formula as well, but like just making you feel like you are not a fit parent and you don't know what you're doing and not having that support that you need. So yeah.
Do you feel that your experience is linked to perhaps legislative standards, or is it more linked to burnt out hospital staff? What do you think is the reason that that team was like that in that scenario?
I would think both. They're underfunded. They're understaffed. I mean, we had just gone through COVID, like the worst part of it. And a lot of people, I think the mandate had happened at that before that people had to be vaccinated or else they couldn't go to work. So I think a lot of staff, like they just didn't have the staff. And they had worked through COVID, right? That would be a necessary job that you would continue to go through or go to. So I don't know why, but I could speculate that it was absolutely burnout. It was like, yeah.
If you could reflect now on that time and say, let's say you had a group of new midwives sitting in front of you and you were talking to them about how important their job was, what advice do you think you would give to that cohort or anyone in healthcare?
I mean, I would just say that I don't really know because it's not that easy. I mean, I could say, remember that these are human beings that you're dealing with and try to put yourself in their shoes, but it's a lot easier said than done. Like, especially when you're in survival mode, which I was assuming they would be for being so overworked, so stressed out. Like, they're just trying to survive themselves. And then you can't really regulate your emotions as well when you're going through that stuff. Sometimes your brain completely shuts down. Like, mine does, I know. So I don't know.
What sort of stands out to me as you sort of talking through all the stuff, though, is you have an empathy there for them at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely, I do. Like, I hate the way that I was treated, and it did have a lasting effect on me. But yeah, I don't just like I can absolutely understand how that situation would have evolved, I guess. And with how much I've been through in my life, I do a lot of reflection. And that's something that I'm kind of proud that I'm able to do, but I do look at the other side of things. Like I do see both sides. And that also might just be because it's kind of one of the gifts at what my brain does, but it also has the same mechanism for some of the ways it tortures me. Yeah. But yeah.
Before we get into the next stage of your journey with this, I just want to explore a couple of key themes that have sort of been pretty consistent since you were given that first, that first diagnosis in your teenage years that you couldn't have kids. I'm guessing your anxiety is really starting to surface at this point, and there's been themes of that throughout. There seems to be a spiritual element to your life as well. You talk about religion or God. When do both of those things start showing up for you? Like what did that look like in your early context as a teenager?
Honestly, it's kind of interesting that you say that it's coming off that like I'm religious, and I understand why that is. But like I grew up Lutheran, Christian Lutheran, and like we would go to church. It was the Easter and Christmas stuff, like it wasn't. There was a while there where my parents found a good church that they liked, and we were going every Sunday. One of the major traumas in my life, which there's been ongoing ones, was I was sexually assaulted and raped starting at the age of 10 until I was 15, so for 5 years straight. And it wasn't, when I say 5 years straight, it wasn't constant, but it was multiple times, like each year. And I think that's when I started questioning, like, if there's a God and why me, And I feel like that's kind of a common thing for a lot of people that go through trauma is they start to question, So I've kind of, as I've grown, never really gone back to believing in like at least the Christian God. And then when I met my now ex-husband, he practiced paganism, like Norse gods, like he was into Vikings and all that stuff. And the kind of music that I like is, like metal, rock metal, symphonic metal, that kind of stuff. He was more into like the death metal and black metal, but it's very common, I think, like the Norse and metal kind of can go hand in hand. I don't want to I feel like I'm probably making a correlation that doesn't exist, but it kind of felt like that. Felt like a lot of people wore Thor's hammers and like, you know what I mean? And so since I didn't really have a religion that I was in, I was like, sure, just kind of, he was passionate about it. He talked about it. And so when we got married, like I didn't have a god that I was going to be married under. So he wanted to get married under the Norse gods. I'm like, sure. But with the extent of his control and his manipulation, that was how he kind of put this fear into me that I was going to be punished by his gods. And my brain goes rationally, right? Like rationally, he was just being a piece of shit, like, but there's that small little percent that's like, but what if? There's that doubt, right? Like, what if he's right? What if there are these gods out there? And actually, I was listening to your other guests that you've had, which have been amazing. And one of them said something that I've always said, which is, they say energy cannot be created or destroyed. So where does it go? Right? When somebody passes, where does it go? And so I'm with him on the fact that I'm a spiritual, but not religious, if that makes sense. And I think that's kind of where the lines got crossed for me, because it's that not understanding what else is actually out there, not being able to prove. It's things you can't see, things you can't prove, right? But everybody has, you hear all these ghost stories, you hear all these like paranormal, metaphysical stuff. And so you have to think there has to be some truth to that. So my brain clung to that, right? I couldn't disprove what he was saying. And so this kind of became a core fear of mine. And it still is. I'll be walking down the hallway, my boys are asleep, and I will just get this overwhelming fear of dread that there's something going after my boys and I'll have to go check on them. Did I answer your question? No, I'm kind of lost.
No, you actually really did. I thought that context was really important, because when you've been talking about your ex-husband and about that moment where he sort of said, if you leave me, that God's going to do this to you.
Yeah.
And it seems that's really stuck with you over the years, and I just thought that was a really important context to your story, understanding why you felt that so deeply. Obviously, there's the abusive element to it, but I think it felt like there was a little bit more there, and I think you covered that really well.
Okay.
But fuck, man, you never got to have a normal childhood, did you? Like,
no,
you never got to be a kid.
No, I didn't. It forced me to grow up really fast, and there's stuff from that. Like, there's so many things that have happened in my past that we could have like multiple episodes on your podcast just to explain one event. It's crazy, but no, I haven't really. But the thing is I don't feel sorry for myself, and I can't can't really give myself grace in that fact, because it feels like my brain will go, but other people have had it worse. And I also think that is very common with other people that have gone through trauma. It's like you're always kind of, I don't know if that's a way to survive. I don't know if that's just because our brains like to tear us down and not think that we're worthy, because our self-worth kind of plummets.
I think it is a bit of a survival mechanism, right? Like, what certainly you shouldn't diminish what you've gone through, and yes, other people's situations are different, and your context is uniquely yours. But I think it is a survival mechanism of who we are to go, well, I need to get through somehow, and maybe my situation's not as bad as what someone else is going through, so I need to just bury that and keep going.
It also does kind of feel like, you're basically gaslighting yourself, though. And
yeah,
like, it feels like imposter syndrome, which is weird. Like, I understand imposter syndrome because I had that with photography, right? Like, I still think people are going to figure out that I'm a fraud. And I actually just saw another photographer who I really looked up to, and she just posted something saying the same thing. Like, she's wondering when people are going to find out she's a fraud. So it's interesting to know, like, no matter how good you are, people still feel that. But to have imposter syndrome about like my abuse, for example, like it's hard for me to admit that that was actually abuse. When if somebody else is going through it, I'd be like, that's 100% abuse. But for some reason, for me, it feels like I'm like a poser or something. I don't know how to say it, but basically, like, I'm being dramatic. That, you know,
these traumas are where you're, you know, like we're talking about, you sort of bury them, you're sort of diminishing them in a way by looking at other things. But I think those things really start to show up when you least expect them. That might be the imposter syndrome. It might be your reaction in certain situations. It might be closing up. It could be a variety of things. And it was really important to put that context together for people so that we can really start to understand where you're at this point now that you've had that experience in the hospital, and now you're taking your first steps with your newborn child at home. So maybe we can start linking back into that story if you like.
Yeah. Well, and you did say something that I feel is important to address, which was that what I experienced with the scared of SIDS, or what I think you guys call it cot death here, or, having those fears, that's not unique to my situation. And you don't need to have gone through trauma to have those fears. Like anybody, honestly, it can be anybody. And that's the same with postpartum depression and all those things. You don't know if it's going to affect you. Like, you can't say, I've never had anything bad happen in my life, never had trauma, so I'm going to be fine. Like, it honestly all of this can affect anybody. And I think that's important for people to know, so that they don't do what I do and say, like, oh, my situation wasn't that bad, so clearly I'm not struggling, when they are. That makes sense?
Yeah.
But yeah, so going through all those, I guess, normal parenting fears, but at the same time, not normal. I got a letter from Mothers and Babies, because remember that first day I said I need help, and it was basically, the gist of the letter was, I'm not sick enough. Like, their resources needed to go elsewhere. So I'm in a new country, without my family, without my friends, a newborn baby that I'm terrified that he's not safe with me, that something's going to happen. And now I felt very abandoned and almost invalidated. Like, my struggles were not valid, right? I didn't need mental help. So
it's a resourcing issue, right?
Yeah, it was. And I'm not blaming Mothers and Babies for this.
No,
and even at the time, I understood. I was like, if there are mothers out there that, and it's probably, I think there were more, it was like postpartum psychosis and stuff like that, that the ones that were delusional and stuff needed more urgent help. And I'm not belittling their, like, I'm not, there is nothing wrong with you if you have experienced postpartum psychosis. I'm just saying that I understood that there was women out there that probably needed just more urgent help.
Well, why I said that is because, it wasn't empathy for that situation, but it was like, for me, fuck, it's a kick in the guts for you though. Like, it just must have made you feel like alone. Must have made you just diminish your feelings even more in many ways and go, well, what the hell is wrong with me if these people can't see it?
Yeah, it did. It absolutely did. And so it just added on to the guilt and that shame. And, for spending most of my life grieving the fact that I couldn't be a mother, and it's what I wanted most in the entire world. Now, being, like, at that point, being a mother, but not enjoying it, not happy. I'm struggling. I'm scared every day. That guilt of, like, I should be grateful. I should be happy. I should be this mother that I always thought I was going to be. And that guilt is heavy. Like, and yeah.
How long had you been out of hospital when you had received that letter? How long had you actually been home for?
I think a couple weeks.
So not long. You're
Not
still
long,
recovering
no.
from all the surgery, and
Yeah.
indicated that you needed help.
Yeah.
And so they've reached out to the service for you, and it takes 2 weeks to hear anything.
And it was, denial. And I had a midwife, and I honestly, at the time, didn't really think anything of it. But looking back, how did she not see it? Like, I kept getting the feeling she was annoyed with me. And there's one scenario that like kind of paints it perfectly. And it was, so Michael had this beloved cat, Cindy. Like, Cindy was his companion. And when he moved to the US, like, his mom was taking care of Cindy. And then we moved back, and surprised that Cindy was still kicking. But after we moved back, she went downhill. And his mom sent us the message, like, it's time, you know? And so I made the call to the vet because I didn't, like, both of them were just trying to cope. So I made the call to the vet, made the appointment, supported Michael, and kind of helped talk him into going into the room so he could be present when, Cindy passed. And we get home, we have Cindy in a box, we're going to bury her. And I realized that she still has her collar on. And I don't want Michael to see the shell that used to be Cindy. Like, she's gone. Her soul's gone. The energy's gone. Whatever was Cindy is gone. So, but I don't want him to see this. I don't want him to have that in his memory. So I volunteer to, like, retrieve the collar because I thought it'd be good for them to keep. And I reach in, grab it, and it's soaked. And I look in, and there's like this brown liquid kind of everywhere. And I don't mean to be gruesome, but my brain goes, well, when we die, we lose all muscle control. So we relieve ourselves. And okay, pregnant women aren't supposed to change kitty litter boxes. Why aren't pregnant women supposed to change kitty litter boxes? Because there's a risk of toxoplasmosis, I think is what it is. I might be wrong. Don't quote me. There's a risk of a parasite infection that could be really dangerous and for, like, the mom and the baby, and could potentially lose the baby. So I'm now freaking out because I've touched this, right? What is for sure going to be bodily fluids that are probably, there's probably feces in there. So I wash my hands, and I'm trying to, like, keep my mind. I'm trying to be rational about it. Like, I've washed my hands. I've done what I needed to do. And I just tried to sit with it because I didn't want to bother her. I didn't want to bother my midwife with it. And then I couldn't sleep. So that night I sent a text and just kind of explained what happened. And I was like thinking, I'll send it, get out of my brain. I'll get some sleep. She'll get it in the morning. She responds. And it was, do you not realize that when you message me, you wake me up? And I was like, well, no, I actually didn't. I didn't think that a text message, like, I thought you needed to call them to alert them, right? Like, I know that they have to have their phone on because labor could happen at any time, but I didn't know a message was going to wake her. And it's not like I had actually reached out to her that much about these things. But I was like, yeah. So I don't know how she didn't see that I wasn't okay. Like, I don't think a lot of other women would have made all those connections and been as scared as I was to the point where I felt like I needed to reach out, and I was going to, I was going to lose my baby because of this situation. So moving, like, fast forwarding to now, I got this letter that I was denied. Well, that's my only other support is that midwife. So I didn't really feel like I had anything. And I went to my doctor. I kept trying to get help because I knew that I wasn't okay. Didn't really know why. I just thought it was anxiety, but I was also just terrified, and went to my doctor. They had a health and wellness coach or professional or something. So I went to see her, and she's like, there's not really much she can offer me, but they did have a study going on at the University of Otago for, like, depression. And it came with 8 sessions with a therapist, like video calls with a therapist.
Which is like liquid gold, right? Because that's, that kind of thing is so expensive. I was going to touch on that just before. Like, It's all very well they have a few services there they could reach out to and try to get some support, right? That might be, either limited or no cost. They're now declining you because they're resource poor and they've only got limited spots. The bills are piling up, and you've got to, the last thing that you can afford is these expensive psychologist sessions.
Exactly.
So this is like liquid gold for you at this point.
Yeah. So I was like, yes. I don't think depression is really what's going on, but sign me up, please. And I was so excited. And so I did these sessions. Her name was Robin, and she was amazing. Pretty quickly, she kind of realized that I needed a lot of help. And we didn't even really, our focus wasn't even really the study. We tried, but it kind of took a backseat. So I basically just got these 8 sessions, which were enormous for me. And then right before the last session, I found out I was pregnant again. And this is now 3 months postpartum. So yeah, that wasn't planned. It's kind of hard when I had this mindset my whole life that I couldn't get pregnant. And then I have a kid, but then you kind of go right back to that mindset, you can't get pregnant. It turns out you can, and you're very fertile after you've had a kid.
Yeah.
So I'm now pregnant again, just trying to survive minute by minute with my first child. And another thing that Chris kind of touched on in the first episode of your podcast was that you can love somebody, but living with them can kind of put strain on relationships. And I do think I have a lot of blame in that because I was scared of so many things. And it must have been hard to live with me. But we were living with Michael's dad and stepmom, and we just felt the healthiest thing for everybody was for us to move out. And they had said we could stay there for 6 months, and we were coming to the end of the 6 months. So I got everything ready. I did all the paperwork, reached out to all these places, went to all these homes, and I got us a home, to rent in Kaiapoi. And I was really excited for this. So I have Logan. I get out of the house because I realize we have nothing to fill a home. We don't have the basic things. We don't have silverware. We don't have plates. We don't have anything. So I was like, I'm going to go to the secondhand stores, to the op shops, and get some things. So I park. I get out of the car. I grab Logan, and I'm going to take him, and I'm going to change his diaper in the trunk first before we go in the store. And this is probably the one time I'm going to cry. I rolled my ankle in one of those really deep gutters, that they have on the side of the road. And next thing I know, I'm reaching down trying to catch Logan before he smashes into the concrete. And I miss. I had my hands on him, but not enough to prevent the impact. So his head smashed into the pavement. And I came crashing down with him. My left knee that I fell on was bloody and torn up. My right leg, I couldn't move. My ankle, I could not move. First thing I do is pick him up, and I'm screaming his name, trying to wake him up because he's gone unconscious in my arms. And I'm screaming for help. I'm on the side of the road, screaming for help, screaming his name. Scared that I shouldn't have picked him up. You're not supposed to pick up people that could do more damage, but I picked him up. I'm cradling him, trying to keep his head steady. I'm trying to claw my way into the back of the car where my purse is while trying to protect him, but I can't stand, I can't move. And a neighbor finally comes out, and we call an ambulance, and we call Michael. Michael's boss brings him to us. By the time he gets there, the paramedics are there, and Logan is moving around at this point, but the paramedics had to gently convince me to give him over because I wouldn't let him go. I thought he had just died in my arms. So all these things I was afraid of. And then I'm actually experiencing something that, and the guilt. The guilt was so bad. I just dropped my baby. So we're at the hospital, and Logan's flirting with all the nurses right when we get there. He's fine, but I'm still scared, right? He hit his head. He could have a brain bleed. He could die at any minute. And I'm like, get him a scan, please. Somebody look at him. But they were more paying attention than me. They didn't want to. It seemed like they weren't interested in him, but it was probably because they saw the way he was acting. But me, I didn't know that. They do an x-ray on my ankle. It's not broken. The doctor comes back and is like, you should be able to walk right out of here. And I was like, are you kidding me? I can't put weight on it. I can't stand. So she seems annoyed, and she's like, I'll go get a boot. I'm like, okay. So the nurse comes back with a boot, and she tries to help me put it on, and I am screaming in pain. And she's like, are you sure you want to do this? And I was like, yeah, let's just get it on. I'm thinking it's going to help. But when she does that final strap, I just shriek, and she's like, no. And so they had to take it off. So she's like, I'm going to get you crutches. And the doctor comes back with the crutches. And it was basically like, you better bring these back type attitude. I'm like, okay.
Sorry, had you had an X-ray at this point?
I did. It wasn't broken.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they wanted to take me because I was in so much pain putting the boot on. They wanted to take me to another wing or another ward of the hospital to like be observed. But they were going to take Logan to the pediatrics. And I was like, I'm not leaving him. Like, no, like, fuck me. I'm not leaving him. I don't care how I am. So we spend the night in pediatrics, and the doctors come in the next morning. And it was actually one of the doctors was Michael's and my sister-in-law. She's so lovely. Cara.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's probably what you really needed in that moment too.
It was, but it kind of made me break down seeing her. I'm like, and she wasn't our main doctor because that would be like a conflict of interest, but she's learning because she's going to, she's doing schooling to be a pediatrician. And I mean, I'm so proud of her. The work that she's put in, she's just such a wonderful person. But I see her and they're asking me like what happened, and I break down and I just keep saying, I tried to catch him. I tried to catch him. And I didn't understand why that's what I was saying. Right? Like, I didn't get it, but I just kept saying that. And it wasn't until like a while later that I realized why it was. And it was, you know how they talk about that mother instinct, that, that primal instinct that you protect your child. So there's stories of mothers falling and they cradle their child and they turn so that they get hurt, but the baby they've kept safe. I let go of him to catch myself.
You're talking a split-second instinct.
Yeah.
Mate.
But the guilt, like I don't have that mother instinct. Clearly, I don't have that instinct that everybody talks about. It was self-preservation. And I tried, like I said, I tried. It was a split second. And I noticed it and I tried. That's why I kept saying I tried to catch him. Because I tried to correct it. And I know now that mother instinct was me cradling him and me doing what I could to claw myself in the back of that car and, trying desperately to get help. Like, that's all mother instinct. And I know that I can't blame myself for the way that my body, like my brain and my body reacted, but I was. And I mean, I couldn't even say his name for 3 weeks. Anytime I said his name, it would just bring me right back to screaming it. Yeah. So now we've moved and I'm in a boot. I can't even, I'm off crutches, but now I'm in a boot and I can't take care of my kid. Can't take care of my son. I need somebody to come in and help. ACC brings somebody in to kind of help me look after him. And I'm not happy with anybody they send. And then, and I'm just so many thoughts in my mind. I'm not meant to be a mother. Like, clearly I couldn't protect him. I'm not bonding with him. So I'm ruining him psychologically because I can't bond. I'm not smiling at him enough. I'm not playing with him enough. I don't know how to play with him. I'm just anything you can think of. I was worried about. But they talk about that first 3 years being the most important developmental years. And I felt that the weight of that clock. I mean, he's 4 months at this time? 3-4 months? And I'm already worried about that 3-year clock, And like, you want to do what's best for them, but like, I'm feeling like I'm not what's best for him. And then like the rage hits and the other intrusive thoughts hit where, I'm not only having thoughts of him accidentally getting hurt. My brain is now, and my intrusive thoughts work in the way that they can come as thoughts, but they most regularly come as images. So they're intrusive images. And it plays like a movie in my head. And I'm having these images of me actually causing him harm purposely. And that terrifies me. That absolutely terrifies me. Like, what kind of a mother would have those thoughts? And why was I having them? And it was like, Michael had to give him a bath a lot of the time because I was scared that he was going to drown, whether accidentally or if I was going to do something. So I'm just feeling he's not safe. But then he'll cry and I just get so mad. Or I'm trying to change his diaper and he's trying to roll away from me. And that little bit of like
Rejection.
Yeah, rejection, the resistance, right? Just, and saying things to him that I would have never, ever thought I'd say to my child, like screaming, "What do you want?" when he won't stop crying, right? Like, who am I? So I do have to say that because I was pregnant, I did have a different midwife this time. Her name is Jackie Snowden, and I would recommend her to anybody. She is an amazing human, fantastic midwife, and she made me feel seen and like I was in good hands. Even though I held a lot of stuff back from her because of the experience with my first midwife, I still felt like I was in good hands with her. And I continued to try to get help through this time because I want to do anything I can to protect my son. So I was talking to Plunkett, and Plunkett had this PNAP program, postnatal adjustment program, I think. So they were sending out somebody, I think she was a therapist, to my house once a week. So I had this person from Plunkett coming once a week. And after kind of meeting me and going through everything, she decided to put in another referral to Mothers and Babies. And this time, like, I wrote a letter basically saying that I'm a new mom in a new country without any friends, family, well, without any family around. I feel like I'm ruining my child. I feel like I'm ruining my husband because Michael's having to pick up all the slack. He's having to do so much. So I'm like, I'm not coping. And they accept me, but they accept me for like an interview, right? And that's now months away. So, but it's something, right? So I just have to kind of survive until then.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm sorry I made you cry.
No, it's not your fault. You have to interview to get some fucking help.
Yeah. Yeah. So keep trying to survive while I'm waiting for this. And, the world just keeps saying like, oh, just enjoy it. This time goes by so fast. And I'm just sitting there thinking like, I'm just trying to figure out how to fucking survive the day. There was something that one of the one of the mothers in my mother's group said that was some days you thrive and some days you survive. And that really stuck with me. Because I was like, yeah, but unfortunately every day I'm surviving. So I talked to my mom throughout this whole time, and so she could tell that I wasn't okay. She's like, you should come visit in the US. So Logan is now 7 months and I'm 5 months pregnant. And like the whole month leading up to going to the US, because it was just going to be me. It was me and Logan, and Michael had to stay home to work. So this whole time leading up, my intrusive thoughts got really, really bad. Same kind of repetitive ones over and over again, which were Logan and I were going to be on the plane and it was going to crash into the ocean. And I'm trying to keep him alive. Not like we would have survived the crash, but that's not what my brain was telling me. But remember, it was showing me treading water in an open ocean, trying to keep my son above the water. Or there were other scenarios. Like if I tried to push these thoughts away, they kind of come back and they up the ante. Like they're like, no. You can't get rid of us that fast. Like that easy. So it's like, okay, fine. We're in a lifeboat. We'll give you a lifeboat. But now I'm watching him die of dehydration in the sun. Or there are sharks swimming by and another passenger just takes him and throws him. I don't know why. Like my brain was literally just going all these different places, and this was happening every night. And or we'd be in the airport and I'm holding him going up the escalator. Kids at that age, they tend to start pushing away from you. They're learning how to move. So he wiggles and I lose him like I did when I dropped him. But he falls 2 stories off of an escalator. And my brain doesn't spare any detail. So I see the impact in the aftermath in my brain. Like images.
So this is like PTSD in many ways.
Yeah. And I try to push that thought away, and then it's like, no. Now this time he's going to get impaled on the way down. I'm like, my brain is just such a cruel place. So, but then comes time for the actual trip, and that morning of, I'm calm as a cucumber. Is that the word? Cool as a cucumber? I don't know.
Same diff.
I'm calm. And I'm like, yep, we got this. And I just go. And it's like, it was weird to me at the time. Well, it was weird to me for a good while that like I thrive when there's actually like, when I'm doing the thing that I was scared of. But if I'm, or even in situations that I've like, obviously have all these fears of Logan getting hurt, but there was one day he was on his, one of those like, like ride along bike things. And he fell forward and smashed his face into the entertainment center. And he came up and there was blood. And if that would have been in my mind, like if that would have just not been real, my God, my brain would have gone everywhere with it. But because it was real, my brain just goes, okay, how do we handle this? And I calmly go up to him and I hold him because he's crying. I asked Michael to get me a cloth and I'm like, we got to wipe it up and see where it's coming from. He just busted his lip. But it's amazing the difference in like me actually handling the situation versus if the situation was imaginary and I'm viewing all these different outcomes. Yeah, we do the trip, come back, and then I get fucking diagnosed with gestational diabetes. Ugh.
While you're pregnant.
While I'm pregnant with Finn. Yeah. So the first pregnancy with Logan, terrified that I'm going to eat something wrong that's going to kill him. Now my brain goes, well, that wasn't actually a really real concern. This is now a real concern. Now you have gestational diabetes. If you don't eat enough, he's going to die. If you eat the wrong thing, he's going to die. Like, same thoughts, but different. And now my brain's kind of, trying to convince me. And then there's things that are happening that's making it even harder for me to wrangle in these thoughts. Like, first time I fill my insulin. So they gave me an injection at the clinic. And then I just needed to go pick up my insulin. And they gave me like the insulin pen. So I just need the medication. Well, the pharmacy gives me the wrong damn insulin, but the right label. So I go home and I have what says the right thing, but it's the wrong thing. So I can't even use it. And I'm like, so we go to a different pharmacy for the next one. Well, then we get them to fix it. Then we go to a different pharmacy for that. And they give me a prescription. Like they hand me all this insulin. Like Michael went in to get it and comes back out. And it's like this huge box. I was like, why do I have so much? They put on there like insulin. You can have a sliding scale, which is typically what they're doing when they don't know your dose, because it's kind of experimental and you want to go in small increase or like very small increments because you need to try to figure out what your body actually needs. And if you go too high, it can be really dangerous. It can be fatal. They put on there increased by 21 units when it was supposed to be 2. Like if I didn't know what I was doing, that could have killed me and my unborn baby.
And you had worked in a pharmacy.
I worked in a pharmacy, yeah. So I saw it right away.
Thank God. Yeah.
But people that don't know. So now my brain's going off on other, like how people could get hurt by this. I'm like, oh, just nothing's working.
Had you heard at this point about the outcome of your letter or your interview? No. So still waiting, and this is a number of weeks later.
And we're getting, actually, this next part kind of leads into that. Gosh, it just feels like I'm just bashing everything here. And I'm not trying to, but this is really my experience. Like, I'm not just, it sounds like I'm pretty hard to please or fastidious. Is that the word? A lot of these things that are happening shouldn't have happened. Like anyway. So I'm feeling guilty that I'm not being a good mother for Logan. So I'm like, I'm going to take him to messy play. All these other mothers, they take their kids out for play dates and play groups and whatnot. And I'm going to take him to messy play. So we're driving and he's screaming in the backseat, just screaming. And of course, like I'm still pregnant with Finn at this time. So I technically have 3 of us in the car. And I scream at him to shut up, which I'm not proud of. And then I have the thought to drive into oncoming traffic. And I kind of feel like I'm scared that it's going to happen. Like I'm going to do it. So luckily, after messy play, I already had a doctor's appointment scheduled for something else. I handed Logan to somebody that was a friend at that time. And I went to the doctor and I told him that I was about to drive into oncoming traffic with my unborn child and my child. And that I'm not okay. And he handled me so gently. He called Michael. Again, Michael had to leave work. Like, Michael's missed so much work because of me. So he had to leave work to come to the doctor's office to take me to the crisis team. And I mean, this wasn't the first time I had thought about that. And something that I feel that people don't understand when, at least for me, I can't speak for everybody, but I know it's not a rare occurrence. People think that suicide is selfish and that they're not thinking it's the easy way out. They're not thinking of everybody else around them, that it's going to harm. That is the furthest from the truth.
You think it's going to help everyone around you, don't you?
Yeah. That I was a burden. I was a burden on Michael. He kept having to miss work because of me. I couldn't be the wife that I was supposed to be, that I wanted to be, that I was. I couldn't be the mother. He had to do all this stuff. I was ruining my children by the anger, by not bonding, all that stuff, that they were just better off without me. So we go to the crisis team, and I finally am like, I'm gonna get help. I want to be hospitalized. I feel like I'm a danger. I want to be hospitalized. And they hand me a folder with like printed information, pamphlets, whatnot. And I think she's a social worker, goes, nah, don't bother reading it. There's not really anything useful in there. Like, okay. And then I was like, I need to be hospitalized. You don't want to be hospitalized. There's really sick people in the hospital. They'd probably harm you. Okay. Guess I'm not going to be hospitalized. I say, I think I need to be on medication. And at this point, Robin had mentioned that way back when I was 3 months postpartum. And I couldn't do it. I was pregnant. Like, I couldn't start medication that's going to harm, So I ask for medication. They bring in a doctor, like a psychiatrist. And he goes, no, you don't want to start medication that's going to harm your baby. So I'm like, okay, all right. The one thing they did offer, they're like, the only thing we can really offer you is like respite. So like to send me to a home with other people, and there's, just a place so I could get, like, I could have a break from, like, my family, which I didn't, I think it's from the crying and from all that, and to keep them, like, because I felt like I wasn't safe, or they weren't safe around me. So I get to I agree, and I get to the respite place, but man, this place was like a freaking time machine. Like, you walk in there, and it was, I don't know if it was like the decor, the vibe, I don't know what it was, but they get me into my room, and I'm just having flashbacks of my childhood and all of the shit that happened there. So I start to have a panic attack, and I get these panic attacks sometimes that I didn't know what it was at the time, but now I know it's called tonic immobility. So, you have your adrenaline responses, your fight, flight, and then there's freeze and there's fawn. So obviously we know what fight is. We know what flight is. Freeze is when you freeze, you can't move. And then fawn is when you just kind of go along with it. That's your survival mechanism, is you just play along. So tonic immobility is a severe version of freeze. And I will, like, my eyes close and I cannot open them. I can't speak. I might be able to move, but usually when it starts, I can't. And I just feel like I am literally my body is a shell and I am stuck inside. And people will be talking to me and I can hear them and I'm responding to them in my head, but I can't say anything. So they just see me shaking and not responding. And Michael's really the only one that at this point knows how to handle those, because he's witnessed those. He's witnessed those since he's been with me. So I think they finally asked me, do you need your husband? And I was able to nod. And so they call him back. He comes in and he can tell that I'm not okay. And I just all I have to say is, it reminds me of back then. And he's like, we're going to leave. So I just wanted to make sure with them, though, that leaving wasn't going to be a bad thing, right? Because I didn't want it to seem like I'm not taking the help that's offered. That was the only thing that was offered. Couldn't do medication, couldn't be hospitalized. The information they gave me apparently was crap, even though that according to them, but they said, like, it's fine, like, I could leave. The next day I get a call from that psychiatrist, and he's like, oh, we've spoken to mothers and babies, and actually we're going to prescribe you fluoxetine. Well, it's a little bit too fucking late, because now they've convinced me that it's going to hurt my baby. Like, why am I going to take it now? And they said that mothers and babies could not move up my appointment. My appointment was supposed to be, I think, in 2 weeks from then. They couldn't move up my appointment, but they said that the crisis team should take me under their care until then. So I'm like, okay. Well, 2 days later, I get a call from that social worker at the crisis team who says they're discharging me. And discharging meaning like I was already home. They were just kind of, I don't know what it meant to be under their care, but that they were discharging me, and she was reporting me to OT. So she was reporting me to child services. And I was like, why? Wait a minute. Why am I being reported to child services? And she's like, well, did you not say that you were going to drive into oncoming traffic? And I was like, I mean, yeah, I did. But like, so now I'm feeling, I was already scared, right?
So you're thinking at this point they're coming. They're going
to take my kids. Yeah, they're going to take Logan. And I'm like, I tried to reach out for help, and now I'm being punished. And like, it took a lot for me to like, and there's things that they still don't even know. They still don't even know about those thoughts of actually like me doing harm. They don't know that. All they know is that like I had that thought of driving into oncoming traffic. And I did mention that there were a few times that I was more rough with Logan than I wanted to be. But in my mind, I mean, I wanted to be this absolutely gentle parent. So like any use of any sort of force, no matter
like
how
raising
small.
your voice, for example.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
right.
You know, you're criticizing yourself for raising your voice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So me saying I wasn't as gentle and I was more rough than I wanted to be doesn't mean that I'm like hurting him. And it was hard for me to admit that, right? Because I knew that they were going to take it as like, I'm hurting him. So yeah, so I've come out and I've said this, and now I'm being reported. So I'm just trying to survive these 2 weeks until mothers and babies can see me. And I've given up hope at this point. You know, every single outlet I've tried, except for that University of Otago study, but she was in the North Island and I was, you know, and it was a Zoom call, and I only got those 8 sessions. Never knew what happened to her. Well, Michael takes me to my mothers and baby appointment to have like that interview to see if I needed to be under their care. And it's Robin. It's that therapist. Yeah. She's my caseworker for mothers and babies. She was the one that called the doctor that told me I couldn't be on medication and chewed him out and was like, we highly recommend that she be put on medication. So I had a meeting. It was me, Michael, her, and then the psychiatrist. And they just asked me kind of go through what I'm feeling and all this stuff, how things are going. And so talking about all these worries, and I'm a terrible mother, and I'm, you know, just a burden for Michael. And at the end of it, Robin looks at the psychiatrist in front of us and goes, I told you she was a shoo-in. Like, I told you she needed us. And they accepted me. They're like, no, you need help. It was just like, I finally felt safe, right? Like, oh, something went right. And Robin was just like my savior. I thought, oh my gosh. So I had hope finally. And being under mothers and babies didn't mean that I was hospitalized. It meant that I had Robin as my caseworker, who was also a therapist or a psychologist. I can't remember what her credentials were, but we already had a rapport. She already knew a lot of like my history. I'm sorry.
You had someone you could trust, that you had already built a relationship with. Now that you've finally had someone that you could call when you needed someone.
Yeah. And so it was weekly calls and monthly visits. And they took me under, even though like it was kind of, they were going to keep me on, even though Logan, it's because they only stay on until your child is 1. And so Logan was 11 months at this point. So they reassured me that they were going to keep me on through Finn. So it wasn't just like, but it took me 11 months for my first child to get help. It was a living hell in my own brain and for everybody around me.
That's why, that was one of the main reasons I cried before, was because, look, one, as a parent, I know how terrifying and difficult it is and how much pressure's there, but just the fact that people don't know, even though the system's failing people, you know, the fact that the system was letting you down, you're in a place where you just don't have a lot of community around you. And, you know, the reason that I sort of broke down before is, one, you finally got a midwife that was listening to you and, you know, really wanted to help you. And that sort of was the bookend to that previous story of the midwives and the whole hospital system letting you down. You then had to interview for this fucking help that you needed. An interview.
Yeah.
Who interviews for help?
Right.
It's not a job. It's not It's not a judge and jury fucking court case. Like, who does that? And number 3, now the full circle of, that university study, the person that you got to link up with there, that help you desperately need at the time, might not have, put into perspective, like 8 sessions doesn't sound like a lot. And even now, you're talking about weekly visits and weekly conversations and monthly visits. It doesn't sound like a lot, right? When you've got something there to help you, the difference that alone makes, and it gives you something to look forward to. And those sessions aren't easy, right? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, those sessions are not easy to go through. But the fact that you've got peace of mind knowing you've got someone to lean on, where you're not going to be judged because you've been judged throughout this with the other health part, the other parts of the health network. But that just really, that really got to me, man. Like,
trust me, it got to me too.
yeah,
really...
I just can't believe, one, how expensive it is to get any support in Australia or New Zealand. The fact that you have to pay so much out of your own pocket just to get some mental help.
Yeah.
And there's some wonderful services out there. But we talk about Lifeline and things like that. They're not funded. They're not
funded enough, and they don't have the resources.
Yeah. And now you're having to interview to even get support. But I was just... I can't imagine what it felt like for you, because even though, you saw my reaction, like the relief that I even felt for you, knowing that you've found this person and the full circle of that moment. Like, that is so special to get that.
Yeah. It was definitely the start of things getting better. We still had hard times after that.
Well, it's not linear, right?
No. I mean, she did support us through my midwife at the time, and Robin, like Mothers and Babies, did support me through Finley's birth. So they had actually Mothers and Babies wrote a letter to the hospital to put in my file of what the plan for after my birth. I was going to stay for 5 days to be observed. And they named those midwives from my first birth with Logan. They named them and said they are not allowed to enter our room. They called them out by name, and they were like, you're not going to enter her room. Yeah. So it was like, I really felt, but then now I have, I've had Finn. Now I have 2 kids at home. I have a newborn and I have a 1-year-old. And just because I was finally having that a little bit, that support. I don't want to say a little bit because it was huge. I was still struggling. My anger got worse. My intrusive thoughts got so much worse. Everything. And I tried. But it was this endless cycle of these thoughts of them dying somehow. The recurring one was earthquakes, or even floods, or car accidents. And the weight that this had on me, I think a good way to explain this is, again, guilting myself, not a good mother, not doing as much as I should. I had to get them into daycare because I couldn't handle having them at home by myself. I didn't trust myself. I couldn't watch them alone. I refused to be alone with them. I needed somebody there. So daycare was a huge thing. It made me feel guilty, right? I'm failing as a mother. I should be able to watch my kids. I can't watch my kids, so I'm having to send them to daycare. But I set up a play date for Finn, and I go and pick him up from daycare. And as I'm driving to this play date, my brain is showing me, because I've taken Finn and left Logan's going to die at daycare. He's going to collapse and not be breathing. He's going to hit his head. He's going to choke on something. My brain is just telling me all these things, and it's my fault because I didn't take both children. I only took Finn. So I'm thinking, okay, what if I'll just turn around? I'll turn around and I will go get Logan. But then my brain goes, but what if that's actually the mistake? You turn around, you're going to get in a car accident and Finn's going to die. And so I'm driving, getting more and more upset because the weight of this decision, if I make the wrong choice, it's going to lead to tragedy. And I'm actually starting to get visually upset and start shaking. And then I'm like, well, this is it. It's a self-fulfilled prophecy at this point, because if you drive while you're upset, then you're at a higher risk of getting in a car accident, and I'm going to kill Finn. And it's just worse and worse. Finally was able to pull over safely, and like I had to wait until there was and then I called Michael just sobbing. But these were very typical thoughts for me, like on a daily basis, is these decisions that if I made the wrong one, and this had started from, I mean, it's actually happened my whole life, but I didn't understand that. So we'll just say from pregnancy is right. All the responsibility was falling on me. So I'm still struggling, and I'm trying to take a nap because I'm sleep deprived, and Finn is in his cot and he's screaming and crying. And I storm in there and I scream at him and I slam my hand on the wall. And I'm like, I'm not okay. So I tell Robin, and she's like, I think it's time you come inpatient. And I was like, I agree. I'm not going to fight that. So it wasn't that this was a voluntary thing. It was a mutual, you should come in. And this was a Thursday. They didn't have a bed till Monday. So Friday, and actually Finn, I think that the story about the car happened later because Finn was in daycare. But at this point, Finn wasn't in daycare. I had him, just me. And so I message somebody, and I'm not by any means blaming her. I'm not throwing her under the bus. This does not reflect who she is as a person or anything. I mean, hell, the things that I've told you, you can kind of see how my brain, it sees situations how it sees them, and it's usually terrifying. So this wasn't this person's fault, but I reached out, and because I knew it was their day off that Friday, and I was like, hey, Finn and I are going to be hospitalized on Monday. I don't feel safe with him by myself. Can you come hang out with us tomorrow? And they go, oh yeah, that's fine. I just have some housework to do in the morning, and then I have to be home to cook dinner for what is her adult cousin that she sees every week on Friday. Every Friday she sees. And so to me,
abandonment.
Yep, I was so low on the priority list. Me and Finn we were below chores and below, like, you know what I mean? So I was just like, never mind. I don't want a burden. Like, never mind. So Monday comes, Michael again has to miss work, and he brings, it's me, Finn, Logan, and Michael. And at Mothers and Babies, you stay with your baby. So Finn was going to stay with me. So they show me in my room, and Michael has said, because I said I'm having a hard time adjusting, and he's like, I'll take as many days off as you need. I'll be here. So he was supposed to come back the next day. And that night I called him, and he had a conversation with his boss. And I don't remember what the conversation was. I don't think his boss really said anything. I think Michael was just feeling the pressure, and he goes, I'm actually going to go back to work tomorrow. So that was it. That was my last support. And Finn was in the nursery, so he wasn't with me. So I was alone in my room. The staff didn't know that I still had my medication with me, like all of my medication. And I was sitting there calm, not upset, calm, and just being like, everybody is better off without me. Like, I'm just weighing everybody down. And so I took all of my medication, all of it. And I was so dissociated at the time that I did it that I didn't feel anything. But thank goodness my survival instincts kicked in, and I kind of snapped out of it and was like, what the hell did I just do? So I went and got the nurse and was like, I made a mistake. But at that point, I'd already taken it. So they had to call Michael, and Michael had to get that phone call that I had overdosed. And they had to send me to the hospital. He had to come pick up Finn. So now he had both kids. And his wife is going to the hospital. He doesn't know what's going to happen. They have to pump me full of benzodiazepines to counteract the medication that I took. So I remember waking up, but I was loopy. I was crazy. I was that person that it's like they're having a psychotic break. They're like yelling at people walking by. I'm not myself, but I don't have control over it. But I'm alive. I call some people that are really close to me, which I'm so embarrassed that I did. I mean, obviously I reached out to them because I felt like I needed them, but I was like, This is embarrassing. I was talking to them when I was like hopped up on drugs. And Robin calls me the next day in the hospital. And she's like, how do you feel? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, are you happy? I was like, mm-mm.
That's an interesting question.
Well, it's almost like she was asking me if, like, my answer was, I'm not upset that it didn't work, and I'm not upset. Like, I'm not happy that it didn't. Like, I was so numb. And she actually said that's actually a very common response for people who have just tried to take their life. I go back to mothers and babies, and at that point, like, because mothers and babies, they're wonderful inpatient. So I have my caseworker, they have a psychiatrist, they have a psychologist, they have a pediatrician, they have a physical or a physio. They have all of these people right there for you, and you have appointments with them. So when I go back, I'm seeing the psychologist, and I finally admit my thoughts. I finally admit my thoughts of the images that come up of me hurting my children. And this was the first time I had ever heard this. She brings up OCD. And to me, I'm thinking, like, I didn't say that I wanted things clean. Like, I said that I thought about, doing this to my son. But I had a complete misconception of what OCD was. And I think a lot of people do. So we think OCD is like, you need things neat and tidy. You check, like, maybe you'll check the lock 3 times. You'll have to turn the doorknob 3 times. And there are some people that their compulsions do look like that, where they have to check or they have to, do this. Or there are people that have contamination OCD where they do need things cleaned. But it's not the casual, oh, I'm so OCD because you're organized. It's literally they feel like something's going to happen, like somebody could die if they don't clean something the right way, if there's germs. You know what I mean? So what my brain was doing was it was so hypervigilant and scanning for danger that any danger was triggering it, including the possibility that I could do something. It wasn't that I was going to, wasn't that I wanted to. The thing about OCD is that it digs its claws into the thing that you care about the most, the thing you value the most, which was my children. So in a twisted way, it was trying to keep them safe, but it was torture for me. And that was a huge relief to, like, understand all that I wasn't actually a danger to my children. I didn't actually want to hurt them. These thoughts were just my brain trying to keep everybody safe, trying to prepare for any sort of scenario that they could get hurt in and prepare for it. But I didn't want to. It took me that long to finally admit it because I was worried of the judgment that people are going to take away my children. That,
well,
if
we go back to what you were saying earlier, where you get out of I forget the name of the place now, but you're basically being checked into an inpatient service, right? And then you're getting a call saying they're referring you to children's services.
Yeah.
I think you're perfectly valid in your response that you thought that's what was going to happen because now they're telling you that that's the direction they want to take it,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I already had that fear before they did that. So when they did that, it just solidified that fear. But yeah, I mean, before having kids, you hear of the stories of people like child abuse and people hurting children and people that have ended their lives. And you just think, God, they're monsters. How could somebody do that? And so when you're having those thoughts of you doing that pop into your brain, you think you're a monster. Like, you're not fit to be a mother. You're not. And I keep saying mother because that's my perspective, but this could affect fathers too. It's not just mothers. And I mean, it's not like I could go to my mom's group and admit what's happening, like have a thought that I just held my child's head underwater. How do you explain that at like play date? You know what I mean? Like, so it was really, really enlightening hearing that. And I ended up not doing well in inpatient, mostly because, like, I didn't have a lot of control with Finley's sleep, and control was something that I've learned that it's a safety thing for me. It's not like, you call somebody controlling and it's this really negative thing, but I'm not trying to be controlling to be malicious, and it's because I don't feel safe. Like, I need to feel like I'm in control to feel safe. I was discharged from inpatient, but still obviously under their care. And I was going to outpatient sessions with a psychologist, Wade. And I told him, because I knew my time was coming to an end. And like, because Finley was going to be a year old in however many months. So I told him, I was like, what I need you to do, because they didn't diagnose me with anything in inpatient. I was like, I need diagnosis because I'm worried that I know that their support's going to be gone. My safety net's going to be gone. And I'm going to have to rely on other healthcare professionals. And I don't trust them with the information that I've shared.
You feel like you're going to have to start again?
Yeah. And that I'm going to, again, have to go through the like risk. Are they going to call? Are they going to take away my children? Are they going to think I'm this horrible person? So I just said, like, please, can we just focus on getting me diagnosed? And so we took the time to he was just during my sessions, just talking to me. We were just having normal sessions. Nothing was brought up about what it could potentially be and what was going on until like, it was like 2 weeks before I was going to be discharged from their services altogether. And I was like, Wade, I need to know, like, we need to do this. I need to know that I'm going to have official diagnoses walking out of here. And that's when he finally like told me what he wanted to actually formally go through the process of diagnosing me with. Like, we still had to do the forms, and he needed to have a conversation with like my mother, and Michael had to do forms. So he was just pretty darn certain that I had these. But he brought up, I was so in shock at what he brought up. Autism, ADHD, obviously the OCD, and then of course PTSD. But it was like the autism and the ADHD. I was just like, what? But the more I thought about it, I'm like, no, that does track. Like I said, I was an awkward kid. I couldn't read social situations. Like, and the ADHD, I'm oblivious, and I can't, I get that I can either be really productive or not functional at all. So that executive dysfunction where like I just can't function. There's just a lot of things where it all tracked. So I ended up leaving mothers and babies with those 4 diagnoses, which have made a huge difference. I haven't been able to get therapy yet because we can't afford it, but doesn't mean I'm not doing things on my own to try to work through. But even just having that, it's almost like it's this external thing. It feels like this external thing that I can share some of the blame with, right? Like it's not all on me.
Understanding.
Yeah. And so it's definitely kind of helped. I did go through a period where, like right after the diagnoses, where I was like Michael loved all the little like weird quirky things that I would do. And all of a sudden one of those would come out, and then I would just sink into myself and go, well, that's not me. That's just my autism. You know, but at the same time, like now I'm at the point where it's like I never thought autism was a bad thing, but for some reason, like me having it just felt shameful. Does that make sense? But I don't look at anybody else that has it and think they're like, that's a shit shameful. But I've come to accept that, like, it's okay. It's okay that I have autism. It's okay that I have ADHD. It's okay that I have OCD. And all of those things that I was describing, the fears in pregnancy, those intrusive thoughts of them getting hurt, those were all from the OCD. And a bit of it from like the PTSD, and even actually all of those neurodivergent diagnoses like the symptoms overlap, if that makes sense. So like we'll say anxiety, for example, kind of falls under all 4. And a lot of people actually just get diagnosed with anxiety as like a blanket thing, and then it's like But yeah, having the actual diagnoses really helped. And I also learned that those compulsions that I thought had to be visual, like physical, right? Like the turning of the doorknob 3 times or something. That's not accurate. There's also mental compulsions, which is what I do, except for the avoidance, I guess. I don't know if that's considered mental or physical, because I'm actually like when I refuse to pick Logan up or refuse to be alone with him, all of these things, the compulsions are to try to prevent the outcome of what the intrusive thought was. So you had that intrusive thought, you feel compelled to do something to prevent it. And like there's one that I'm sure a lot of parents have, but like I still have it. And I just kind of give into the compulsion because it's an easy one to give into. I try to work through some, but this one I just do. Because my brain, it'll just pop into my head that like I'll be laying in bed and then I'll picture Logan dead in his bed. and I'll be like, I need to go check. And then I'll try to convince my brain that's not a rational thought. This is your OCD. You don't need to check. But the compulsion is so strong because I just go, but what if? You know? And then my brain starts thinking, if I check on him, he's fine. If I don't check on him, he's dead. It's kind of like Schrodinger's cat. Do you know about that?
No.
It's a quantum mechanics thought experiment. So it's a cat in a box with like a mechanism, and there's a 50% chance that this mechanism could go off and kill the cat. But while the box is closed, that cat both exists as alive and dead because you don't know what's going on in it until you open it. So it's kind of, my brain's kind of doing that with, like, unless I go check, like, unless I open that box, I'm not okay. So sorry, I think I just lost my train of thought.
No. So you mentioned, so how long ago was all this now? How old are your kids now?
2.5 and 3.5.
Okay, so we're talking about a couple of years, right? Yeah. Since then, obviously, it's really hard to afford, that psychology, that psychologist support. Essentially, it's no different here. It's bloody expensive to do, and most people can't afford it, right? You mentioned earlier on, though, you do these reflection exercises.
Yeah.
Talk me through some of your ways of dealing with these things, and how you cope day to day these days.
Well, I think a lot of it is it's not something that I just kind of like learned to do all of a sudden, because I've actually had these mental health problems my whole life. Like, they didn't start with pregnancy. I had intrusive thoughts, like would see my parents getting in a car accident, and my compulsion, one of my main compulsions is confession, is like I have to say it. So because it's going to sound really stupid, but for some reason it works for my brain, is that if I have an intrusive thought of something like that, if I say it, it's not going to come true because I'm not a psychic. It's not a premonition. It's not a vision. So if I say it, it's not going to come true, because if it does true, then all of a sudden I'm a psychic. Like, it sounds stupid, but for some reason that works for my brain. So if I confess it, if I say it, it's not going to happen. So this has happened my whole life. And especially with the sexual assault when I was a kid, when that finally came out, I had to go through trial. 16, I think I was 16. And obviously that's traumatic. What I went through was traumatic. Trial was traumatic. So my mom put me in therapy, which didn't work. I mean, I wasn't ready, but I've been in and out of therapy or in and out of seeking help for a long time. And so I picked up things along the way, I think, is what I'm trying to get at. One thing that helped a lot, and this was back in my 20s, was cognitive behavioral therapy. It had like worksheets for you to do. So you were basically rating kind of what your emotions were, and then it made you think what caused that. So at the end of the day, it'd ask you like all these things, and then like on a scale of whatever, how happy were you? How sad were you? But then it'd make you kind of look back at the day and try to figure out what made you happy, what triggered you to be sad. And it's usually a lot more complex than just one event. So I think that's kind of where I learned that skill to to reflect, but it wasn't, I built on it over the years. And the more that I learned, actually, something that's really helped me is the internet, as much as there's downfalls to it. Because one of my compulsions is Google. I know it sounds stupid, but it actually is a compulsion, because it's that need for certainty, that need for control, that need to know that information, because then I can better prepare. So I've like Googled and read a lot of articles, a lot of Reddit posts, a lot of just so many different avenues that I've just kind of, a question will pop into my head and I'll be like, I wonder why I do that. Why do I act that way? And I'll just research it. And then, it's just kind of over the years, I've learned a lot. But I think it all started with that cognitive behavioral therapy.
It's really interesting. You mentioned your mum put you into a counselor when you were younger, and you said you weren't ready for it. It nearly blew my mind because this is almost the exact conversation I had with my therapist. We sort of had a couple of breakthroughs, and I said the past week, basically, part of me was really annoyed and grieved in a way that I didn't do this sooner, or I couldn't do this the last time I seeked help, or I just wasted 20 years of my life essentially not unpacking a lot of the stuff. And she said, well, a lot of the time it's because you're not ready for it. And you just really bookended that for me. I think you really do have to be ready for it and open to it. And a lot of it depends on the person you're speaking to as well. But I think, I think sometimes there's a lot of things you have to experience and a certain level of maturity I think you have to go through.
Yeah.
And you have to be in the right moment for that. And there was another thought I had that was going to go with that. And it's gone.
Sorry,
No.
I made you forget it.
No, it wasn't you. But I just thought that was a really important piece to what you were saying.
I do think it's important to acknowledge, though, that because I don't want people to hear this and feel like it's an excuse that they're not going to seek help because they're not ready or help isn't going to work, or you know what I mean? Like, it's still good to try to seek it, but I think going in with the open mind that it's not going to fix everything. You know, it's little steps along the way. And you're right, it does matter who you talk to. And so I think people understanding that you might go in and talk to somebody and they might just not be a right fit for you, and that's okay. But to keep trying.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think the hardest part with that, it's certainly, is the cost.
The cost,
like it puts a lot of people off. You know, if you think you don't gel with the first person you see, but you've just wasted $120, $180, $200, it creates this reluctance to sort of go back. Now, I'm really lucky because my organization that I work for has EAP, right?
What's that?
So employee assistance program, they call it, but it's basically an external counseling support. And it's completely confidential, and a lot more organizations now are starting to utilize these services. And essentially, they pay for the organization will pay for your first 3 sessions, essentially. And it's not just for work-related stuff. It's everything, right?
That's awesome. I'm glad they're doing that.
Yeah, and a lot will give you the option for extra sessions as well, So, again, it doesn't sound like a lot, right? But it actually made the world a difference. But to your point, it doesn't solve everything. But I think if they ask questions in the right way, it just starts to peel back the layers a little bit, and you start to look at things a little bit differently. But it's really hard to get to those points. And I think the way, what you covered before about your reflection exercises and things like that, like I do my own form of it in a different way, but I think you got to find the right tools for yourself. And
yeah, that's it too. Not every tool works for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do think a very powerful tool is actually what you're doing in your podcast. Shared experiences are free, and I haven't felt more seen than with somebody who has experienced what I've experienced. You know what I mean? So hearing somebody talk about what they've gone through, and you can be like, oh my God, they get it. I'm not alone. I think that is huge. And I think that's what the world needs more of. So I'm glad I'm so happy you're doing this podcast, and I'm really happy that you had me on it, even though I made us both cry and I feel extremely vulnerable. I'm worried that people are going to judge me, and I'm going to lose business over it because people are going to be like, oh, and I hope not, because I'm actually a very loving person and I do love my kids very much. The problem is I care too much that my brain just doesn't know how to cope with it, and it's just trying to protect me the best way it can.
I don't think that's going to happen at all, mate. I think this is probably one of the most important conversations that I've had. And my takeaway from it is that it will help people feel seen, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are going through this in silence and aren't getting the help they need. And it puts a fucking spotlight on these health systems that are failing people in these, particularly in Australia and New Zealand, where we live. And I think it's really important we highlight those things, even basic things that we've covered, right? Peel back the layers a bit. Like you talk about even an example like Michael had to take another day off work, and that really, you said that a few times.
Yeah.
Now, even people that don't have these bigger things going on in their lives, that is a guilty thing for them, right? Like they, we feel guilty if we have to take days off work, and we don't have a lot of sick leave at any given time. Because even, kids get sick so much at daycare throughout the year.
God.
Like the daycare bugs, right? But, what I've learned throughout these last 2.5 years, it's all about teamwork. And I'm certainly really lucky where I work. I've got a very, very supportive team and a very supportive leadership group, but it doesn't stop that guilt.
No,
And I see it with my colleagues and my direct reports, how guilty they feel for taking a day off. And it's like, well, life happens, mate. Life is just really complicated sometimes. It's not smooth. You've got to do what you got to do. And at the end of the day, for me, family's number one. And, it sounds like you and Michael are a wonderful team. He's really helped you. You've both really helped each other, I think, navigate these trials and tribulations over the last, however long you've been together, 6-7 years.
Yeah, I think we've been married for, we realized after our 6-year wedding anniversary that we're like, oops.
Yeah.
We've never been able to celebrate it. There's always been something going on. Yeah. I do think, unfortunately, that society doesn't really give people the space to put family first.
Fully agree.
Like you said, we can't miss work for family. We feel guilty, and I think it's just like it's everywhere.
Maybe to land the plane, so to speak. You're now an award-winning photographer.
Yeah.
You live in New Zealand. You've got a wonderful, loving husband. You've got 2 wonderful kids. What does a good day look like for you these days?
A good day for me looks like being emotionally available for my boys, getting to smile with them and laugh with them and play with them. It means being able to show up for Michael, because that's something that I'm still working on. It's been a slow progression of not being able to be alone with my kids to now, like, we've gotten to the point where I can watch them. It's fine. And I'm not having a meltdown. I'm not scared. And now, like, I'm now doing daycare drop-offs, and like, he needs more support. So a good day is me able to give him that, to be like, hey, you go lay down and take a break, and I've got this. I've got the kids. Yeah. I think just, having the kids be happy and laughing and playing is a good day. But yeah, it's weird. It just seems like a good day to me is a normal day for, I don't want to say that. I want to say a normal day for other people, but I can't assume that it's not. It's just it's the part that people show to the world, So that beautiful day as a family that you think everybody else has, those are my good days.
And do you find these days that's happening more frequently, or still got a little way to go?
No, it's definitely happening more frequently. It definitely is. And I'm on medication now for both ADHD, and luckily the medication that I had requested to be on for like anxiety and whatnot is actually used to treat all of them, OCD, ADHD, and autism, and I didn't know that, and PTSD. So it's like, but it's the mood stabilizer I'm on. It's good. So with the work that I've been doing and with those added supports, I don't spiral as much. I don't have as many OCD episodes, and if I do, I'm able to bounce back a lot quicker. It doesn't completely like pull the rug out from under me, and I need to try to figure out how to get back on my feet. And I have a higher tolerance for sensory input, so I'm not having sensory overload as frequently. I still get it. I mean, there's no way I can't. Toddlers, there's sensory overload for anybody. They
are.
You get touched out, you want quiet, you want this. So but the fact that it's not happening daily and that I cannot, it's absolutely gotten so much better. And I didn't think I'd be here. Like, I did not think that I would be here. So I am really grateful. And Michael really is the MVP though, man. That guy.
Shout out Michael Gibbs.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Well,
hey, I know how, sorry.
I was just going to say thank you for having me on.
You beat me to the punch. I know how hard today was for you, and I'm really proud of you, mate. Like, I mean, shit, you've been on here with me for 3 hours,
I
which
know,
is
sorry.
don't apologize. I should
told
be
you I was a
apologizing to you.
chatter.
You've had to deal with me for 3 hours. No, I think one of the most profound and special conversations that I think I've had in my life. And yeah, I'm going to keep that with me for a long time. And I know a lot of people are going to take a lot from this. And I'm just really thankful and proud that you've shared this. Yeah, really special. I hope as well that people I don't have much of a reach at the moment, Lauren, but I hope that parts of this make its way to someone in government and makes them really look differently at these services and the funding that they're providing them. And I also hope that people working in healthcare, and I'm one of them in my own capacity, I don't directly care for people, but I just hope that people realise the impact of the work that they do, and that words have a lot of weight. Words carry a lot of weight to them. And I hope people take that away from this conversation and remember the reasons they got into it. Remember the reasons they got into healthcare. You know, they're there because they wanted to care for people. They wanted to help them, and they want to make the world a better place. And even when it's really tough, and I know how tough healthcare is, I just hope they remember the reasons that they got into it, and that their words carry weight. And you are making a massive difference at the end of the day. And that difference can go either way. It depends on how you're reading the situation as a healthcare worker, and the effort that you're putting in there. But yes, you all deserve pay rises. You all deserve psychological safety and all that stuff. Just remember your foundations, and we'll keep advocating that you get the conditions that you need to provide the care that we desperately need.
I do want to say just quick that I understand that there's a large portion of healthcare workers out there that aren't jaded, that do care, and they feel that pressure of not having the funding. And I just want to call them out, because I don't want this to seem like I'm bashing all healthcare workers and all this, because I greatly appreciate the work that they do. And I've come across some amazing people in the field that do care, and their hands are tied a lot of the times. They're important.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
Is there any advice you want to give anyone going through that might be going through a similar situation to yourself, or anyone you want to thank?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If anybody can relate to any part of it, like, I don't expect somebody to have the exact same journey that I did, but any small part of it, if you relate to it and you know you're not alone, and know that it is okay to reach out for help, no matter how scary that is, it's okay to reach out for help. And whether that's even just confiding in somebody that you trust and you love, like a family member or a friend, that can be the first step. Because sometimes we're not strong enough ourselves to go the full length. But if we have somebody that's supportive, that we can at least tell, and they can help kind of carry the weight with us to get to the help that we need. But it's definitely important, because the alternative is, I want you here, and I don't want people to think that that's the only way out, is to not be here anymore. And the mothers that end up not being as lucky as I was, though it doesn't sound like I was that lucky through the process, but I was. The mothers that don't get that help, that end up making the decision to take their babies with them, we can prevent that. We just need to be more open and more understanding and more empathetic, as all humans need to. I mean, when I hear those stories now, I used to think that they were monsters, and now when I hear them, my heart breaks, not only for the children, but for the mother, because she probably wasn't a monster. She probably just didn't have the support that she needed. Ooh, that got me good. Okay. Yeah, and quick shout out. Obviously, Robin. I think her name was Shelly. I feel so bad that I don't remember her name. I think Shelly was the PMAT person. My doctors, George and Isaac. Jackie Snowden, the wonderful midwife, and Michael, my mother, and my stepdad and my mother-in-law. They've all been massive parts of this. So, shout out.
Nice one, Lauren. Hey, thank you so much again for everything. Your vulnerability, for being here today, and really special, everything you've shared. We probably could go on for a couple of days with you. Well, probably a couple of months with the amount of stuff we could unpack here, but
I do not envy you having to call this down and edit, so good luck.
Could be a two-parter, who knows?
That was Lauren Gibbs, and what she shared today took real courage. This conversation is a powerful reminder that intrusive thoughts and postnatal struggles don't make you a bad parent. They make you human, and staying silent only makes it harder. Whether you're a mum or a dad, if you felt alone, overwhelmed, or ashamed of the thoughts in your head, you're not alone. There's help and there's hope. I'll leave some contacts in the show notes. You can also check out Lauren's incredible photography at laurenashleyphotography.com. Her eye for beauty and detail is something really special, and it's award-winning. If this episode moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's make space for honesty in parenthood, even the messy parts. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening again to Drop Balls and Big Calls.